Alright, hey guys, it's Andy here from Crestline, and we're going to get into the bike build here. And I'll preface that this assembly overview only aims to cover the specifics of building this Crestline RS181 DJI bike when building it frame up. I'm just getting the headset pressed in here one cup at a time. It's simply easier to have the fork on the bike to build it. So with that, I'll show you all how to route everything and do my best to keep things clear and simple. To start, we'll remove the motor cover, which is 2 bolts on the underside of the bike. We're doing this so we can access all the cables and route everything with the most ease. First to route is the rear brake hose, so we'll get the caliper mounted first. You do want to always keep tension in the speed sensor cable. This will ensure it stays snug to the frame and away from the rotor. Next, we will need to unscrew the charging port from its mounting position on the non-drive side of the frame. There are 4 very tiny bolts, like really tiny, so be diligent to keep track of them. We will also need to remove 2 similarly small screws that secure the touch display. Now, back to routing the brake hose through the rear triangle. I'm using a 4mm Allen right here so that I can guide the brake hose out through the port of the rear triangle. This is a bit tricky, but with persistence, it does come. And your frame will actually arrive with guidelines. We'll pull it through a little bit, and then we'll feed it through the hole on the down tube so that we can feed it up on the inside of the down tube. There are 4 tubes in the down tube to route your cables, 2 right here above the battery where the battery has 2 hollowed out channels. I'm going to feed it into the drive side or the right channel above the battery. Then I'll push it through the top. This is why we've taken the display out here, so we can maneuver the hose right in there and feed it through the exit point on the bike's head tube. And there we go, brake hose routed. And now we can push the rest of the brake hose through the frame. With the brake hose routed, let's reattach the charging port. And hopefully you've kept track of those 4 little tiny bolts. It takes some patience to line up and screw in, so let's practice some patience and all shall not be cross-threaded. You should only have to do this once, or at least only when you need to replace the brake hose. For fit and finish, we'll snap on the guides, which hold the DJI speed sensor cable and the brake hose. Then we'll finagle the rear grommet into the rear triangle. And because we cut the brake hose, we will need to bleed that rear brake. I'm using a Maven bleed kit here with a Maxima OEM mineral fluid. Now let's route the dropper cable housing, shall we? To start routing the dropper post housing, we'll need to remove the battery. There's one long 4mm bolt at the top of the battery accessed through the display screen cavity, which is why we've left it out for now. And then there's one 3mm bolt on the down tube of the frame that holds the bottom of the battery. Then we'll slide it out after detaching the power cable. If you need extra help getting it out initially, you can reattach the power cable, which provides another grab point on the battery when first trying to get the battery to budge. We'll feed the dropper cable housing into the frame at the head tube. Then it'll cross over to the opposite corner above the battery where there is built-in cable routing. You'll see it, or at least you'll be able to feel it, and it'll come out the bottom just like so. To get the housing into the seat tube, we can push the housing up either side of the motor, and it'll come right up on through the seat tube. If you're installing a mechanical shifter, the process is the same as routing the dropper post housing. Now that our housing is routed, let's put the battery back inside the down tube and reattach the mounting bolts. You'll want to be careful of the cables and make sure that you're keeping them out of the way. The battery should slide in smoothly when done right. If you're experiencing a lot of resistance or friction, then a housing or hose might be pinched by your battery. I'll push the battery up until the mounting points line up, and we'll put in that 4mm screw in at the top, and then the 3mm screw in at the bottom. Then we'll go ahead and reattach the DJI screen. Don't go too tight on those bolts, they're quite small and soft. Lastly, I'll reattach the power cable to the battery. You should hear a nice audible click. Now we're going to move on to installing the chainring. Let's first loosen and rotate the chain guide out of the way. Alright, so here we've got the mounting plate and the chainring itself. There are 4 mounting bolts here with their respective nuts. Please only use the chainring mounting bolts provided with the DJI chainring spider. If you use other bolts, you will risk having some clearance issues. Now we'll put the chainring on the spline. With some grease on the threads of the chainring lock ring, we'll get it started by hand, turning the ring clockwise. Then we'll use the tool to tighten a little bit further, and then I'll use the crescent wrench. I'll also use the 6mm Allen wrench to find a groove in the engine case to brace the chainring so I can torque to spec. Before installing the crank arms, I'll grease the threads of the spindle so the crank arms can actually come off if need be, and then I'll tighten that on there with an 8mm Allen wrench. Now let's begin installing the T-type drivetrain, at least on this bike. The bushing
we should be good to go.
Be on the
Let's
outside,
get this thing out for a quick
depending
rip.
on what chainstay
And we should be good to go. Let's get this thing out for a quick rip. And we should be good to go. Let's get this thing out for a quick rip.
Also, before we install the rotor, we should add the DJI speed sensor ring over the brake rotor itself. Then we can install the rear wheel and set up the T-type drivetrain. We're only going to loosely thread in the axle, and then we'll install the chain. We'll get the chain through the derailleur pulleys, and then we'll attach the master link. To set up our bikes, you'll be using the 7th cog or the red cog on T-type cassettes, and the lockout flip chip should be in position A. Now here I'm mating the axis shifter to the T-type derailleur. There's a little pairing button on the outside of the derailleur, and you'll press that and hold it until the small LED starts flashing. Then you'll press and hold the pairing button on the shifter until the derailleur light starts blinking fast. Then you should hit the shifter buttons and press the derailleur's pairing button once more, and all should pair up. Don't forget to put the chain guide back into position and tighten. Then check your shifting. My little trick here for aligning the caliper and rotor is I just align the rotor in the middle of the caliper regardless of where the pads are. Because if you've done the piston massage and the bleed correctly on the brakes, the pistons should push the pads evenly and not rub the rotor. As we finish up, let's reinstall the motor cover. Lastly, let's install the DJI controllers on either side of your handlebars. They're very easy to pair. You can either pair them in the DJI app or through the DJI display menu. And for something very satisfying, we'll pull that off, and we should be good to go. Let's get this thing out for a quick rip.